What's up, bros and besties? Are we live? Are we good? We got sound, we got video. Thanks, Royal. If you're watching this now, if you're catching it after the fact, Royal 007 is the first one in the chat. Um, and I made it known that I have a migraine. So yes, I'm sure I'll feel better. I took some Advil. But for now, let's get into this live. Let's talk about the Cowboys, what they've been doing, what they got coming up. And then later, I do have somewhat of an update on the WNBA and the Wings. I'm too loud in my own ear. Give me a second. Let's turn that down because that echo will trip me up. But yeah, later I do have an update on the WNBA and their CBA negotiations and how that's going to impact the Dallas Wings or may not impact the Dallas Wings. I've also got Sports Center up here just in case something interesting comes up. So if I like look over here and be like, hold on, pause, then that means I'm about to bring up something on the screen. But I haven't had a chance to talk to y'all about the Cowboys game since I did the live stream that win over the Chiefs. First of all, that live stream was so much fun. Shout out to everybody who showed up and who kept the chat fun. We had a good time talking about the game while it was on. But normally on Tuesdays I do my swipe rights for everybody who stood out, and so I'm planning on taking tomorrow off. So there will be a replay of this tomorrow. But I was like, I can go ahead and do the swipe rights. I know it's been 4 days, but we're still going to go ahead and talk about who did a good job. And then we're going to get into the sound that's come from Schottenheimer and Eberflus and just talk about where it seems like their mind is in terms of where the team is going for the rest of the season. Because they had a few interesting things to say that I think will answer some questions that fans have had about just some of the things that we've seen from the defensive side of the ball, some of the things that have been on Schottenheimer's mind as far as like how the season is progressing, so on and so forth. So I've got notes here, I've got notes here, I've got eyes everywhere. But we're gonna start with these swipe rates. So I still don't have graphics for these, and I'm so sad because like I'm working on graphics and they're gonna be fun. But for right now, y'all just get to once again listen to my lovely voice. So first up, getting a swipe right is one Mr. George Pickens. And if you watch this game, you know absolutely why. So first of all, this man literally jumped over a whole ass human being for a few extra yards, just like he was hurdling furniture in his living room or something. Um, so 6 catches, 88 yards, and apparently he thought Thanksgiving was a perfect time to practice hurdling people. But the real story here is what he did to Jalen Watson. So Watson pressed him on every target, which, okay, that's cute. But Pickens caught 5 of 7 for 85 yards on him alone. That's the most yards allowed by a Chiefs defender to one receiver since 2018. And like that's not just winning matchups, that's literally ruins like you ruined that man's Thanksgiving. Um, and then later in the game, Watson apparently was so stressed out he committed pass interference late because we know that George Pickens knows how to draw those. And at that point, what else are you supposed to do? Like prayer alone was not getting it done for him. So I guess he resorted to getting a little bit more physical, and that did not work out. And George Pickens on these slants. Oh my God. Five slant targets, 4 catches, 73 yards, the most by any receiver on slants in a single game this season. So when he breaks inside, like he's sudden, he's strong, smooth at the same time. Like if you watch my reactions when we were watching him run routes, you know how I feel about George Pickens and his routes and his slants. I'm loving everything I'm seeing from him. And this game, he earned himself a swipe right. Um, Next up for the swipe rights, we've got CD Lamb, of course, gets a swipe right for having a comeback game. This was a full blown bounce back performance by CD Lamb. I loved it. So after the Eagles game, just catching everybody up, he had a lot of drops. It was definitely giving, I need to log out and reset. And that he did. And he came into this matchup ready to let everybody know that he is still him. And I love that for him. So for CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches on 9 targets for 112 yards and a touchdown. So that's how you're supposed to respond when everybody just spent a whole last week talking about your hands. But here's the part that really made the difference. It wasn't just the volume that he got, the catches and the yards. It was his actual impact on the game. Um, so against Trent McDuffie, who is Like, if we're being real, Trent McDuffie is not like easy pickings. He's a legit technician, somebody you don't really easily get off against if you've been, watching him consistently. But CD caught 4 or 5 for 44 yards and a touchdown. Then he basically, wait, hold on, I'm reading my own notes. Um, Oh, and then he got hit with a late game reminder with the deep shot for 51 yards. That was awesome. And then, here's what I really liked about what CD did. The DPIs, he had, that's in my other notes. I think it was like two of them for like 20 something yards, two for 23 yards. But what I liked about them was, at least from my perspective, it looked like CD was intentional about drawing that contact. Because sometimes the contact just happens and receivers get lucky. But this was actually something we noticed with Pickens earlier in the season, was that he was able to really draw contact and make defenders regret getting physical with him. Because sometimes they get away with it, right? But when it comes to receivers, there are ways that they can position their bodies to make it a little bit more obvious and ensure that they get the DPI. Um, and from where I was sitting, from the angle that I was looking at, it looked like that's what CD was doing. So that was really cool to watch. That not only did CD bounce back in terms of making the catches, but he was also making an impact in terms of just getting the yards when they were coming for free. Um, and that's pretty dope because my philosophy is, if a man is grabbing you like that, either y'all are dating or you're cooking him. So good job, CD. What else? So for CD, 4 of his catches, which was for 93 yards and the touchdown, all came on throws that were 10 plus yards downfield and almost entirely against zone. So that means he wasn't just catching the ball, he was reading it, slicing it, exploiting it, all the things. And so this is what a wide receiver one looks like when he gets pissed off at his own performance and decides to fix it immediately. So this is a real redemption arc for him. So I love it. I hope it continues. Next swipe right goes to Dak Prescott. So, um, Dak Prescott was basically flirting with chaos all night. So they blitzed him a lot, but he threw for 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just one interception. But the part that impressed me wasn't the box score; it was how he responded to them blitzing him. So they blitzed him apparently for 49% of his dropbacks, which is the highest blitz rate he's seen the entire season. And instead of panicking, Dak was just like, "Oh, okay, so y'all want to dance, whatever." So against the blitz specifically, he went 15 of 19 for 190 yards, which is the fourth most yards he's ever had against extra rushers. He was pressured 12 times overall, including 7 pressures that came from the blitz looks, and he completed 10 to 12 passes under pressure for 108 yards with 2 touchdowns and just one interception, no sacks. So that's insane. Like, to sum that all up for anybody who doesn't necessarily like get the impact of those numbers, that's insane. That's bananas. So Dak was just like speed dating with with the defensive lineman and still making plenty of awesome throws like it was nothing. And so that's what happens when you have a grown man QB, composed, on time, kept the offense functional even when Chiefs were throwing all kinds of licks at him. Um, so yeah, Mahomes magic is cool, but I will take Dak's poise any night. Swipe right for him. Now we go to the other side of the ball. Uh, Swipe right goes to the entire Cowboys defensive scheme because, oh my God, what we saw from the Cowboys defensively just had me with a smile on my face all night. And especially like just going back and watching the film and really looking at what they did, I was just like, okay, so the Cowboys are really working with something now. So early in the season, obviously everybody was complaining that the defense felt too plain, it was too safe, they weren't blitzing enough, everything was very vanilla, and it made it really easy for teams to figure them out. But then they started cooking, right? First came the 5 down fronts. We've been talking about the 5 down fronts for a few weeks, and Cowboys fans were like, "Oh, okay, so they're trying new things." Started to see a little bit more success, but they did not stop there. So this coaching staff just kept evolving, like they were dropping a new DLC every week. Um, so against Mahomes and the Chiefs, we saw 6-man looks, We saw six-man fronts. We saw linebackers mugging the A gaps. We saw at least one instance of a linebacker mugging from the zero tech position. We saw um, let's see, we saw some late rotations that really seemed to mess with Mahomes' pre-snap reads. What else? We saw them passing off routes. We saw pattern matched trips alignments. Um, so we even saw some coverage sacks, which meant the secondary was doing their job. Um, and so, like, I think that was one of my favorite things actually, because when you start seeing stuff like that, where the sacks are happening because Mahomes literally had no options, um, that means that the rush did their job, but also the back end did their job. And so when the secondary starts to step up like that and the whole thing starts looking like coordinated chaos, oh my God, I was eating it up. So this definitely is not the old Cowboys defense. This was creativity, this was adaptation, and my personal favorite, this was mischief. Like they were just causing chaos on the line. Like I'm so here for it. I'm low key obsessed. I love it. And so from there, I want to talk about the defensive line specifically because they were applying pressure like they were trying to get cuffed by Christmas. So the difference in this game, it really felt like they were making sure that if Mahomes wanted to do his thing, and you can kind of hear them talk about this, like if you watch sounds from the sideline, um, they wanted him to pay for the Mahomes magic that he tries to use so much. So Patrick Mahomes was pressured on 35% of his dropbacks, which was the second highest pressure rate he's faced all season. He was still 7 of 10 under pressure for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's built for chaos, so that's predictable. But he also took 3 sacks, 3 sacks. And every time he tried to like spin his way into a highlight, there was somebody in his face. So even if they didn't get a sack on him, they were still pressuring him. They still made him nervous. They still were speeding up his clock. You could see it. Like if you watch the film, you can see it. Um, and so this win, I know like with the Eagles, people kind of talked about how the Eagles offense have been struggling all season, yada yada yada. But this one against the Chiefs, that did not happen because the Chiefs didn't show up. That did not happen because Mahomes was off of his game. This happened because Dallas showed up harder, right? So no, the pass rush did not completely shut down Mahomes. Like the Cowboys only won by 3 points, but they absolutely kept him from taking over the game. And sometimes that's all you need. Just don't let him take over the game, or whoever's on the opposing offense. Don't let them take over the game. Give your offense a chance to get the points. And so the pressure that they brought to the table, that was enough to get it done. So swipe right for them. And that brings us to the last swipe right that I have, which I don't have a ton of stats for, but this was mainly from me watching the film. Um, Jadeveon Clowney. Jadavian, we can run it for the cardio Clowney. Oh my God, this man is all over the place. And so, if you've been listening to the press conferences, this is why Quinnen Williams mentioned him by name. This is why Brian Schottenheimer mentioned him by name twice. This is why everybody's asking about him, because he was determined to ruin Mahomes' night. He only played 29 snaps, but he made every single snap that he was out there feel heavy. So he finished with 5 tackles, an assist, and 2 sacks. But honestly, the box score does not do justice to how chaotic he was making life for Patrick Mahomes. He was in this man's lap in the entire game, speeding up his clock, flushing him out, forcing off platform throws. There was maybe 1 or 2 snaps where Jadeveon Clowney was not a problem and he was on the field. And his hustle, oh my God. So he was chasing stuff down from the backside all night. So if you have ever hear me say something like, we know Clowney likes it from the back, this is what I'm referring to. Backside pursuit all night. There were plays that went away from him and he was still running them down just to make a play, finding the right angles, looping behind the formation and running down dudes who running down the ball carriers. Oh my God. And even so, even when the run, there were a couple of runs that went up the middle, and he still went all the way around the formation from the backside and made the tackle from behind. So we're talking high motor, we're talking disciplined pursuit, we're talking about him making it look easy the whole night as well. Well, no, sometimes, especially when he was chasing Mahomes down, it did not look easy, but he was killing it though. Um, so he definitely gets a swipe right for that. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else about him that I didn't mention. Nothing right now. We're gonna get into the specifics as we listen to some of the sound bites that I have for you guys from the coaches' press conferences. But yeah, like this team looked really, really good on Thursday. It wasn't like I think going into this game, there were a lot of people who hoped that the Chiefs would make a mistake. And I'm not saying that they did everything perfect, but it wasn't like huge mistakes to where they blew the game. Like the Cowboys also made some mistakes. There was like this one huge play that I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes only got away with because Charqueezy Bridges literally slipped and fell in the coverage, and that left a guy wide open who like ran for a ton of yak after that. So I say that to say mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. Mistakes happen for both teams, but the Cowboys, they did their thing. Um, so there are a couple of other things that I'm going to bring up, especially about stuff that I saw on the defensive side because I've watched more film from them so far. But like I said, we'll talk about it as we listen to these sound bites after I take a look and see what y'all are talking about in the chat because it looks like a few of y'all have shown up. What up, Clement? What up, JV? Already said hi to Royal. Looks like there might be a few other people in here. Hey, everybody. Um, let's see. Clement says Williams and Malik Davis. Yes, Malik Davis is crushing it. And so here's the thing that I'm going to talk about with Malik Davis again because a lot of people are asking this question about the running back signing that happened today and the fact that Blue was benched again. So I will reiterate again. Malik Davis is an excellent complement to Javonte Williams specifically. He seems to really allow the offense to not have to make too many adjustments when they go from one running back to another, which is what you want, right? He's figured out how to run hard. He's figured out how to make his presence known, and I think the reason why he was waived previously was because he wasn't necessarily doing that. And now something has clicked. I don't know what exactly it is, but he does look like a different running back now that he's back with the team and he's been given these opportunities. And it's something that they actually asked Klayton Adams about in his press conference. I don't know if I wrote down the timestamp, so I don't know if I pull up the soundbite, but they did ask Klayton Adams about that touchdown by Malik Davis that happened during the game. And even Klayton Adams said that they didn't necessarily plan for that to become a touchdown. That was something, it was a play that they had tried earlier in the season. And then they decided to pull it back out and just the blocking worked out and Malik Davis did his part and did way more with it than they anticipated. So that wasn't like, oh, they were working their way down the field and oh, let's give it to Malik to run it in. That was, we're going to give it to Malik. Oh, shit, he ran it in. Um, so he's really doing his thing. Still not getting a lot of carries, not getting a ton of carries, but when he does get the carries, he's making an impact. And I feel like that gives not only him and everybody else confidence, but just, when it comes to having to make those changes, it's like they know if he does have to take more carries, that's something that they can depend on him to do. Whatever they need to implement, they know he can handle it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, huge shout out to Malik Davis. Um, Royal said, when I saw Malik Davis squeeze all the way to run, man, I was surprised and shocked. Apparently, a lot of people were. Um, JV says, do you believe that the Israel Abandaconda signing is more to replace Hunter Lipke or Luke Schoonmaker? I'm gonna be honest, I haven't even looked that deep into it. Mainly because this guy, he hasn't put a lot on film to like where I even understand what the Cowboys expect from him. He was I don't remember what round of the draft, but it wasn't like first or anything. He's been passed around from like among a bunch of different teams. I want to say like three different teams. A couple of them he didn't even get any playing time, So I'm really like, okay, what does this guy bring to the table? What are they looking for? So I heard about the signing, but it's not something that I've really looked into today. And from what I have heard about this guy, it really just, until I see something else, it really just feels like another body. I don't know why they did it. Because, like I said, he hasn't done anything that seems spectacular or amazing thus far. So I think if they are expecting something significant from him, because like Schoon and Lipke, they get playing time, they get snaps, they make an impact on the offense. So if you're trying to replace one of them, you need to replace him with somebody who has the ability to do that. And I haven't read anything about this guy that tells me like, oh yes, he definitely has that ability. I'm still like, all right, I see your name. I see you've been on a few teams, but who the fuck are you? What are you bringing to this team? So I can't really answer that, JV. It sounds like maybe you've heard a theory that I have not picked up on yet. I know you support a few different content creators, so that might be why I have not had a chance to watch anybody else's content, especially not on this topic. So feel free to fill me in on what you've heard. But let's see who we're going to bring up first. First, we're going to talk about Shotty and a couple of things that he said. We're going to talk about, let's see, he talked about Quentin Williams. I think because they hadn't been talking to the other coordinators for a few weeks, they've been asking Shotty a lot of questions about the defense. So he did talk about Quentin Williams. He talked about trusting the process, and he kind of gave us a little bit of insight on what their philosophy is when facing the Lions. So let me go ahead and bring that up, and we'll get into that. All right, so we're gonna start about. Let's start with the Quentin Williams quote. We're gonna go about halfway through here.
With the AP, Quentin Williams has told us at least once that one guy can't do it all in the context of the difference that he's made. The evidence is pretty overwhelming of the difference that he's made. What do you see in the difference in the 3 games since he's been here?
I think it starts with just the way you have to game plan him. We've done that quite a bit, Skylar, over the last couple of years. And I mean, you have to have a plan to neutralize him. Him one-on-one is a very, very tough assignment for really any interior offensive lineman. But I do think that he's exactly right. It's not just one guy. I mean, we have Jadeveon Clowney's affecting the quarterback as much as anybody. You know what I'm saying? The coverage, Revel is doing a great job of tying up receivers, which is, again, tighter coverage. So now the pass rush gets home. And I think what you hear Q say is real. Defense is about all 11 guys. But, again, I'd be lying if I said when you open up the personnel report and you see Quentin Williams' name, you're like, oh, what am I going to do about this? And so I think that's real. And when you pay a lot of attention to him, it gives other guys a lot of opportunities to showcase their talent.
All right, so we're gonna pause right there and talk a little bit about what he said there because so Quentin Williams has said that a couple of times because obviously the defense has been performing better since Quentin Williams showed up, but that is a situation where it's more about correlation than causation. Because yes, the Cowboys defense has been looking better since Quentin Williams showed up, but also Quentin Williams' stats have been better since he joined the Cowboys defense than they were when he was with the Jets. So that lets you know that relationship in terms of improvement is going both ways. And this was something I wrote an article about. So I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but like if anybody's interested, let me know. I'll pull up the link. But like this isn't just like an observational thing. This is a statistical thing, showing that everybody's stats have improved, like especially Osa's, especially Quinnen's, and especially the Cowboys defensive line in general. And so one of the things that I think has helped, and this is something that Quinnen was even asked about in his recent interview, um, he talked about the fact that the Cowboys have an attack style. So like every week when we've been asking like, is this actually an attack front? Now that Quentin Williams is here and they have the right guys in rotation, they are acting more like an attack front, acting more like what we would expect to see from an attack front, right? So that makes a difference. But another thing that's happened since Quentin Williams has gotten to the Cowboys, um, which is really where the timeline correlation comes in, has been the creativity with the defense. So, like I said, they were already implementing the 5 down front situation before Quentin Williams got to the Cowboys. When Quentin Williams showed up, they were able to refine it a little bit in terms of the personnel that they wanted involved in the 5 down front and the rotation, right? So that was another improvement. And now we're seeing improvements to where not only are they doing the 5 down fronts or the 5-man fronts, but now we're seeing 6-man looks. Um, There was one particular play, and I'm kind of glad that they only did this once because I want to see how this would look against a quarterback who's not Patrick Mahomes. But there was one particular play where they had a 6-man look, and wait, was this one of the 6-mans? I don't know. This actually might have been one of the 5-man, but it's an example of just some of the creativity that we're seeing from the defense. But it was Demo who was lined up at the zero tech position. So like they brought him down like a mugging linebacker, but instead of putting him in the A gap, he was lined up like right over the center. So then when the ball was snapped, you could kind of tell that Mahomes kind of hesitated because Demo did not engage the center, but he was literally there just to kind of like make Patrick Mahomes second guess. Meanwhile, Mahomes had pressure closing in on both sides. And so the only way that he could get out was through one of the A gaps. And so there was those few seconds of hesitation where he was like, okay, which way do I go to where this fast ass dude in front of me won't be able to catch me? And so he did squeeze out and he did get some yards. But that's why I said, I'm like, I'd like to see what a look like that would do against a different quarterback, especially with, like, for example, the Lions. People have been talking about how the Lions have been, the offensive line has been having a little bit of trouble over these last few weeks, right? And how it's affected Jared Goff and his decision making and the plays that he can make. So it's like, what if they take that same thing and they do it against the Lions? What's that going to look like? Um, so yeah, the 6-man looks, the way they're mugging the linebackers, the late shifts and rotations, I think all of that together is contributing to the success of the Cowboys defense. And so like, yes, the timeline of Quinnen Williams is helping. Quinnen Williams being there helping with the rotation, definitely a benefit. But is it like Quinnen Williams by himself making every single damn play? No. You can tell that even just from like Jadeveon Clowney. So like I think um what Shadi is saying is true. Like having to game plan for Quinnen Williams does help. His presence does help open up things for people like Osa and for people like Jadeveon Clowney, but it's still up to those guys to do their jobs. And it's still up to the staff to actually put the defense in the position to do a good job. So I think Shadi gave a really good answer there. What are y'all saying? Oh, y'all are asking about Phil Maffa. That's you know what? We do need to see what's up with him. I haven't really looked him up in a while in terms of just like seeing what the latest headlines or sound bites are about him. Um JV said Shadi has said multiple times that he likes big RBs and Davis is smaller. I mean, that may point to why Davis is still getting so few snaps despite the production, but I'm like, you can't deny the production. Maybe that's why he waived him initially. Maybe he's just like, Malik Davis isn't really giving what he should give to the position. Plus, he's smaller. Like, get him out of here. And then Davis came back and like was like, let me show you that it's not the size that matters. It's not the size of a running back. It's how they attack the gap. Um, JV said, having said that, I wouldn't like anyone who doesn't pass protect properly. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much a standard with the Cowboys now. Like you got to be able to pass protect. As a matter of fact, that was something that I think Javonte Williams was actually talking about in his interview from it was either today or yesterday, but they were asking him about his pass protection ability, and he said he got better at it because he didn't want to get yelled at. So a fun interview to watch on the Cowboys YouTube channel. All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at is when Shadi talks about trusting the process.
Talk about their first goal is to win the division. Since week one and that loss to Philly, it almost seemed unattainable where you guys were 2 weeks ago. But since you overcame that 21-point deficit and beat them, now you've won 3 straight. They've lost 2 straight. You're within a game and a half of them with 5 to play. How do you view the potential now, and how do you interact with the players about, achieving that goal?
Yeah, Ed, I talked to the guys today about, just trust the process. You got to stay in the moment. Like we're taking today. What is today? Seriously, today is Sunday, right? But it's Wednesday for us. Like, I'm not thinking about winning the division. I'm thinking about throwing a great practice today and then having great meetings this afternoon and cleaning up the things that we got to do and then putting together a great third down plan. Like from day one, I've told you guys, and it's what I believe, and there's different styles. When you start looking too far ahead, whether it's game one, preseason, end of season, you take your eye off what really matters. And I think that's when you don't perform to your maximum capabilities because you're distracted. I told the guys a little bit today, I mean, just because we've won 3 games, that doesn't change anything. We're going to go out there today and we're going to be very intentional about throwing a great practice. We're going to go out there, run around in shells. We got to really focus on the fundamentals. I think focusing on the skills that help you play at an elite level is what's going to help us continue to sustain success and win games moving down into the latter part of the season and put ourselves in position to make the playoffs, whatever that looks like.
And your first
Shoddy, always big on the fundamentals. So, yeah, if you've been watching a lot of just the media surrounding the Cowboys and this winning streak that they're on right now, there have been some people asking the question, is it a possibility for the Cowboys to end up winning the division? So basically, if the Eagles fucking fall off a cliff right now, which feels like what's happening, um, and the Cowboys win most of their remaining 5 games, the Cowboys could get into the playoffs by winning the division, which would be fucking bananas to go from how they started this season to actually becoming division winners and thereby making the playoffs. Like, I would pass out. Um, but yeah, so that's the storyline that people are kind of playing with as sort of a what if. And Shotty's basically telling us, as expected, that he's not really thinking that far ahead. Because the truth is, that's not up to him. The Cowboys need to do everything that they can do to win the remaining 5 games, all of them. But in order for that scenario to come into play, like, yes, the Eagles would have to lose. Like, they would have to go from being in a rough patch that they're in right now to just, like I said, falling off a cliff. Because I think, hold on, let me see if I can pull it up. The NFC standings. I was hoping I already had it up on the screen. But yeah, I think the Eagles would only need to win like 2 or 3 games in order to ensure that they stay in charge of or at the top of the division. So let me see. Yeah, so the Cowboys are at 6-5-1. And so if they win the remaining 5 games, that would put them at 11-5-1. So yeah, the Eagles would only need to win. Oh, well, damn. The Eagles would have to win at least 4 of the next 5 in order to keep that from happening. If the Cowboys went out, if the Cowboys went out, if the Cowboys don't win out, that equation changes a little bit. So basically, whatever number the Cowboys win, the Eagles have to win one less than that in order to make sure that they stay at the top of the division. So it could get interesting. I don't know. Now I'm kind of tempted to like actually look at who else is on the Eagles schedule. Let me see. The Eagles have coming up the Chargers, the Raiders, Commanders, Bills, and Commanders. So yeah, if they don't win most of those, they've definitely fallen off a cliff. Can you imagine the chaos that would ensue if the Eagles somehow lost to the Commanders twice? Yeah. JV said the Dodo Birds only have to lose 2 games and the Cowboys have to win out for the Cowboys to win the division. Yeah. So yeah, if that were to happen, something terrible has happened to the Philadelphia Eagles because Jesus Christ. um, but yeah, it is an interesting scenario to think about, and even with people talking about the Cowboys and the Lions switching places. So basically, if the Cowboys win this game against the Lions, they switch places in terms of where they're ranked in the conference, but neither one of them would make the playoffs if they happen today, right? So while that would be cool to move up a little bit, it's like that's still not enough to actually make a difference in terms of the Cowboys' playoff future. So the Cowboys have every reason to not really be looking towards the playoffs and just take it one week at a time and do their part to win. And then if somebody else in the division fucks up and they make the playoffs, awesome. But if not, like I keep saying, the road to a championship sometimes lasts more than one season. And so I feel like they've laid some excellent groundwork to move forward from this season, whether they make the playoffs or not. Because even if they do make the playoffs, whatever they do this season, they are 100% in position to continue it next season. So I'm like, by all means, make the playoff, make a deep playoff run. Hell, go to the Super Bowl, and then do it again next season if you have the foundation for it. JV said, "When's the last time a Super Bowl champion didn't make the next playoffs?" I don't know. That's an ESPN question. They be having all those stats. Like the last time these 5,000 circumstances came together, it was 1928. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. Um, let's see. We're gonna listen to one more soundbite from Shotty, and then we're gonna listen to Flus.
Oh, I saw that from him last week, which is a great step for a young player.
Brian Ollie, Jawan, TLS, Cowboys. Just looking at the Lions, they're a very aggressive team. You know, Dan Campbell goes for a lot of fourth down, seeing one trick plays, things like that. Just how do you prepare really for a team that is really built so much off being aggressive on fourth downs?
Yeah, it's a preparation thing. Third down is really second down. And that's the way you have to look at it. So when you're calling a defense and you're Flus, you have to understand, let's say it's 3rd and 7 or 8, whereas in the league, it's probably in most situations, I know probably for myself, it's pretty heavy pass. But with a guy like that that's willing to go for it on fourth down, you got to be ready for different things, maybe a perimeter screen, maybe a run, a trap, something like that. But I think part of it is the preparation. You normally carry a few extra calls on third down that can carry into fourth down because you know that there's going to be situations like that. And then in terms of the trick plays, trick plays are really cool when they work. But what stops trick plays is having great eyes and great communication on defense. And, we're both in situations where this is an important game and we want to play well. And I think that you should expect the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected indeed. So I really like the fact that he mentioned having great eyes and making decisions on defense when he talks about facing the Lions, because one, that's going to be necessary because yes, they go for it on fourth down. Yes, they have trick plays. Yes, they have a phenomenal ass running back in Jameer Gibbs, right? So all those are things that the Cowboys defense is going to have to account for that I think a few weeks ago were really scary for a lot of people watching the Cowboys. And you can kind of tell, like, if you go to anybody who was doing predictive content a few weeks ago and was looking ahead at the schedule, a lot of people were looking at the Lions game as one that they didn't expect the Cowboys to win, right? And now a lot of people are looking at it as like, you know what? I feel like the Cowboys have some opportunities here, right? And so part of it is because of what I said before. People have been talking about the struggles of Detroit's O line, the lack of depth at the receiver position. Like, yeah, they have St. Brown, but who do they have behind him? And so those are good questions. But like what I saw from the Cowboys defense is what gives me faith that the Cowboys can answer those questions. Because, like I said, we saw coverage sacks. We saw tight coverage on the Chiefs, which is something that I think a lot of fans have been looking for all season. Um, like I was impressed by the Cowboys coverage, not because they did something that was like truly groundbreaking, but because they were doing things that made sense that played to the strengths of the players. Like there was at least one snap where the Chiefs came out. They had 3 receivers on one side of the formation in trips. They were set up in a triangle formation. And it's like the Cowboys were like, oh, we can make triangles too. And that's like one of the things you see a lot of times when offenses are set up in trips. Like for some reason that will like really trip up a defense, no pun intended. But it was like the Cowboys instantly had an answer that didn't require them to think a lot. They could react more than they had to think. Awesome. There was another play. The Chiefs came out in fucking 32 personnel, this tight, compact formation that had 2 tight ends on each side, and then 3 running backs, or at least 3 people. I don't remember if they were all like running backs by position, but Mahomes had three dudes in the backfield with him, right? So this tight formation that you're kind of like, well, what are they going to do here? So what did the Cowboys do? That was one of the times that they set up in a 5-man front. I think we saw Malik Hooker at first was on the line of scrimmage, then went to the second level with the linebackers. And so, like, it was very quick communication. There was a couple of shifts, a couple of rotations, but it was a 4th and 1. So technically, Kansas City won that rep because they did end up converting. but they set up in this weird ass formation that you almost never see. And it looked like something where an offense would get ready to do some sort of power run thing, right? But Mahomes being Mahomes, he throws a pass out of this formation. So I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I don't even know if they prepared for that. Like, what the fuck is this even? And so the fact that they only got 4 yards from it, I'm like, I feel like the Cowboys defense from a few weeks ago, that would have been a fucking disaster. So the fact that the Chiefs got 4 yards from that, they converted on 4th and 1, it's kind of like, eh, it's whatever. Like, technically a win for the Chiefs, but to see how the Cowboys thought that through on the fly, that they had a good option ready on the fly. Stuff like that is what gives me confidence in this defense now to say, like, yeah, when it comes to coverage, when it comes to the trick plays, will they get everything perfectly right and completely shut this offense down? Like, no, the Lions are going to get yards. They're going to convert sometimes. It's going to happen. But for the most part, do I trust the Cowboys defense now to win more battles than they lose, or to at least prevent, miscommunications, or, just misalignments or something that they didn't catch? Can they prevent that from turning into a disaster? Yeah, I absolutely trust them to do that. Um, so yeah, I'm glad that Shadi pointed that out. The fact that the eyes are getting better, that the communication is getting better, because they've been talking about the linebackers in their eyes and the defense in their eyes like all fucking season. So it's good to see that finally coming together. Clement said St. Brown is questionable for Thursday. Ooh, didn't practice today according to reports. I can't see him not making this game. They need this game too much. The Lions need this game almost as much as the Cowboys do. If he don't make it, that would be wild. Um, the Lions, there's an icon on my phone that is in the way of me reading your whole message, Clement. The Lions have injuries on both the O line and secondary. Yes, yes. Um, the Lions in general aren't looking too good in the trenches. They've got a lot of injuries all over the place. Like, it's not looking too good for them. JV said the Lions had injury issues on the O line, and the Cowboys don't have major issues with the D line. Exactly. It's a mismatch for sure. And if you watch Sounds from the sideline, you hear Quinnen Williams like, "Man, I missed so many sacks." So I feel like he's going to be trying to make up for that on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to it because I would love to watch some Quinnen Williams sacks. Um, After the Lions, we have Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, and Giants to close out the season. All winnable games, 100%. And that's kind of my point about the predictive content from a few weeks ago. Like, a few weeks ago, I know for a fact, I heard people say, like, oh, Vikings and Chargers, I don't know if the Cowboys can win those. And now it just really feels like, yeah, they can. But it goes back to what a lot of us have been saying all season, when we were like, if the defense could just go from being last in the league to being decent, this team would look totally different. The record would look totally different. And I would say right now, because of the things that they've been implementing, they actually look better than decent. And there's so much synergy going on with the defensive unit. And by that, I mean, there's so many people who look better just because the unit as a whole is looking better. Like, even Kenneth Murray has been looking better. And y'all know y'all couldn't stand Kenneth Murray in the first few weeks of the season. Motherfuckers was talking so bad about Kenneth Murray, but even he's looking better, just like being next to Logan Wilson, being next to Demo, like, so many people are looking way better than they did for like the first 6 weeks of the season. So yeah, I'm excited. All right, so now we're gonna look at Flus and some of the things that he said. What did I want to listen to from him? Um, a few minutes into his press conference, he kind of talked about what he felt was some of the most important elements of his defense. So I'm gonna let him talk about his defense in his own words. Let's go like 4 minutes in.
Where he is.
Matt Archer with ESPN. With the 5 down front that you guys have done, as you've done more of it, you kind of have to stay ahead of the game a little bit, knowing teams, the more you do it, the more looks they're going to have it. You guys running it, that maybe they come up with different answers.
Yeah, you have to give different looks, different coverage variations. That's always important with the scheme that you're doing. And
but having those guys in there is a big part of it. You know, when you have guys in there, you put one more guy down to the pass rush, you know, so you get 5 guys going, or you got 4 or whatever, 3, depending on how you're going to, you know, configure it each week. But it's important that you keep changing and adjusting, you know, tweak it here and there.
And then your third down defense improvement, what do you put that on the last couple, three weeks?
Yeah, it's just about guys, you know, really, you know, doing the jobs and making sure we're on the same page. And those guys have done a good job with that. You know, it's a little bit tighter coverage. We've had some of that, mixing up the coverage looks. You got to be able to do that. And then really it comes down to the most important thing is the pressure. You know, if it's 4-man, 5-man, or if we're sending a guy off the ball, whatever that might be, that's been really good. We got a lot of good hits on the quarterback, pressure on the quarterback, collapse in the pocket, making them feel it from the middle, from the outside. And I think that's always a big part of it. And the first job you got to have in pass defense or in situational defense.
John Machota with The Athletic.
So yeah, he talked about tweaking the looks, which they have been doing, and I feel like they're going to do more. And so the pattern that I noticed with them implementing the 5 down front was that they were like really sprinkling it in at first. I remember the first time I saw it, I was just like, oh my God, they need to do that more. And then they did do it more. And then they changed the personnel for it. And then they did it even more. And then we started seeing them kind of play around with shifts and rotations, with simulated pressure, so on and so forth. So it went from, okay, 4-man fronts to 5-man fronts. Now we're going to do some simulated pressures. Now we're going to do some different looks in terms of the personnel that's here. And so I'm really wondering if the same thing is going to happen with this 6-man looks, because based on my notes, and a couple of these were questionable because of how people were moving around, I was just like, okay, was this actually supposed to be a 6-man look, or because of the way people were moving around, did it just kind of look like 6 before the snap and that was never supposed to be a thing? I don't know. But there were at least 3 times that they did something that at least looked like some sort of 6-man look. Yeah, and then one of those times Malik Hooker ended up going back to the second level. But if it follows the same pattern that they followed with the 5-man looks, then we're going to see that sprinkled in more and more. So I expect to see more mugging linebackers. I expect to see more guys on the line of scrimmage in certain situations. Basically, when it comes to what he's talking about with tweaking the looks, they have even more options than they've shown. So that's something I'm not worried about at all. They could even run the 5-man looks more often if they really wanted to, because as much as people talk about it, they're still running the 4-man fronts most of the time. It's just that they're doing different things with it. So it doesn't feel like that same kind of stale coverage that they were running at the beginning of the season. So that's why he talked about changing the coverage looks. So like we're seeing like more tight coverage, right? And then we're seeing different makeups in terms of the personnel. Like sometimes they have the 3 linebackers out there. Sometimes I don't remember if it was in this particular interview, but he talked about the corners that he liked to have come down for crack replacement and stuff like that. So they've been kind of playing around with all of that, and having guys come back and be healthy, having the safeties come back, all of that has contributed to it by all means. So part of it is him being more creative. Part of it is like, oh, guys are coming off of injury. So now we actually have some more options in terms of personnel, right? So all of those things are coming together. But I say all that to say, I feel like when it comes to the looks that they're putting on film, there's still a lot more that they could do. So in terms, why did I pause it on this particular frame? He's making such a weird face. But yeah, they have a lot more options. The next thing that I wanted to listen to from him, one of the reporters said something about Osa mentioning that they didn't necessarily believe in the run defense at the beginning of the season. And Flus just kind of responds to that and what he thinks changed.
And he'll keep improving.
Tommy Arch, DallasCowboys.com, also was saying after the Kansas City game that at the start of the year he didn't necessarily believe or accept what you guys were showing on film in the run defense. Did you notice that as well? Feel that
Who
way?
says? Okay.
Did you notice that as well? Feel that way, or and what has changed in the last 3 games that's made this run defense better?
Yeah, run defense from game 1 to 55 games ago is always going to be the same thing. Be where you're supposed to be with violence and good technique. And that's what it is. So that's where it is. And it takes all 11 guys. It takes everybody, so it's going to take the corners tackling on the crack replaces and the nickel being where he's supposed to be and the defensive line same way.
And then with Gibbs and Montgomery, you coach Montgomery, you play against him and Gibbs. What makes the combination of both of those guys different from some other backs that you might have to face every other week?
Yeah, Demo's a real pro. Very serious, very intense. He's a damn good runner, and he's done a good job for those guys. The 1-2 punch that they have is something that you don't have in the NFL, and they have it. And then
Let me go back to what he said.
The combination of both of those guys.
Supposed to be in the defensive line same way.
And then with Gibbs and Montgomery.
5 games ago is always going to be the same thing. Be where you're supposed to be with violence and good technique. And that's what it is. So that's where it is. And it takes all 11 guys. It takes everybody, so it's going to take the corners tackling on the crack replaces and the nickel being where he's supposed to be and the defensive line same way.
So yeah, be where you're supposed to be with violence and good technique. I feel like that could definitely be a good quote for one of my "as it is in sports, so it is in life" segments. Um, but yeah, I like the fact that he mentioned violence. I also thought it was interesting that in talking about this, he talked specifically about the corners doing their jobs on crack replacements, and he talked about the nickel spot, which one of these days I'm gonna have to do a swipe right on Reddy Stewart because that little man just be out there. They be putting him everywhere, but they do use him at nickel a lot. And I think the thing that I like about smaller football players, especially the ones who still play with a lot of aggression and violence, is just you can tell that they have a spirit of I'm not going to be limited by people's beliefs about me. I'm not going to be limited by being one of the smallest dudes on the field. I'm going to come out here and do my thing and dare you to stop me. Like if I'm not supposed to be out here, if I'm too small to be out here, then prove it. Show me because I don't believe you. And I love that about him. Who is this comment from? It's Clement. Clement says, I like the mix of 4 men on early downs and then into the 5-man pressures with the D line on third down. It's creating pressure to force the QB to make quick decisions before he's ready. Oh yeah, 100%. Um, and I feel like the late shifts and rotations are doing that too. Obviously, like it's not as obvious against a quarterback like Mahomes, just because Mahomes is so smart and he's so ready to make a play. It doesn't look like he's impacted, but it's one of those things that like any QB worth his salt is going to be impacted if stuff starts changing right before the snap because QBs worth their salt are trying to identify the various defenders and what they're going to do. Whether it's who the mic is or whether it's a force defender who's coming down for a special role, whatever, they're going to be trying to identify that. So you start moving guys from the first level to the second level, or you switch up who's attacking versus who's dropping back, versus which is something that the Cowboys have been doing the last couple of weeks. Like, yeah, it's going to mess with you. So I love that. And then fun fact, they've actually been mixing up the 5-man looks on some of the early downs. And I feel like that's going to be really important against the Lions because on the Lions, with the Lions, because they run trick plays and because they decide to go for it on fourth down so often, that division between early downs and late downs and what should be a run play versus what should be a pass play, it's not as clean and easy to identify as it is with other teams. So like you really have to use your eyes, you really have to trust your film study, and you really have to be ready for whatever they're going to throw at you. So I kind of like the fact that the Cowboys are mixing it up and they're like, okay, we're not just going to base it on which down, like first and second down we do this, third down we do that. We're going to base it on what we see and what we think they're about to do. And we saw that work a few times against the Chiefs, whether it was them snuffing out a play and ruining its effectiveness, or just a couple of times where they were actually able to flush Mahomes out of the pocket and get pressure on him, throw him off his game, force a coverage sack, things of that nature. You're seeing how them responding to who that person is and what they bring to the table, how that's making a huge difference as opposed to having like this strict script that feels kind of plain, kind of cookie cutter and could be applied to anyone. Um JV said ready is like J. Lou 2.0. I don't know if I'm ready to say that per se, but he could get there. If he keeps trending in this direction, he could get there. I don't know what he did before he came to the Cowboys. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't checking for him before he came to the Cowboys. So I don't know what his trajectory is. I don't know if this is like a new role for him or not. Um, I just know they brought him here and he's doing it and he's embracing it. And I'm like, cool. That's who they got. All right. I didn't take any notes on the timestamps for Klayton Adams, so I'm sorry. I will probably, I won't say probably, I don't know. My work schedule has been crazy. I want to do another stream before the game on Thursday. Um, One, just to talk about some of the stuff that we didn't talk about today, because I haven't watched nearly enough offensive film. I didn't do the timestamps for Clayton Adams. Like I said, I watched his press conference, but I didn't do notes on it. But also, Hard Knocks NFC East is coming out. And I know I'm going to want to talk about it with you guys. Whatever we see, I'm going to want to talk about it with you guys. So there's part of me that wants to say, yo, Wednesday night, I'm going to go live. So I'd like to, but I know that's just putting a lot on my plate with the game being on Thursday. So if I don't go live Wednesday night, I might go live early on Thursday before the game. So that way, if anything interesting does happen in Hard Knocks NFC East, we can talk about it before the game starts. I try to go live before the game starts anyway, just to kind of be like, hey, here's some things I heard last time that I didn't talk about. Um, but real quick, before we get out of here, just a couple of housekeeping things just to make sure I cover everything. So like I said, I will not be doing the radio show tomorrow. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but like I'm I hope I'm not getting sick. I'm not gonna say I'm getting sick, but I think the weather change is getting to me and my throat doesn't like it. I have a migraine. I need a rest day, which won't really be a rest day. I'll be working still, but at least I can submit this rerun and not have to go into the studio, and at least my day won't be as packed as it normally is. Um, so there's that. Um, and then there was some news out of the WNBA that I wanted to talk to you about. Talk to y'all about. So we'll call this tonight's read and react. So WNBA and Players Union extends CBA deadline to January 9th and avoid a lockout for now. So there's no news in terms of what either side is bringing to the table. As far as I know, they are still talking about the WNBA as an organization saying, hey, players, here's what we want to offer you. And the WNBA Players Union saying, hey, that's not enough in terms of position or percentage. And that is where they're at. And they're neither side is budging. Um, and so they don't want to lock out. They don't want to lock out. I know people have talked about, oh, there are these other leagues that could snuff out the WNBA. And in theory, that is true. In theory, there are leagues overseas, there are leagues being formed here that could take over the WNBA, but that's not something that's going to happen anytime soon. For any of those leagues, based on where they are, it would take years and years and years, right? But for the WNBA getting the CBA done, we're talking about something that we want to see happen within the next couple of months. Um, Definitely, like, we don't even necessarily want another extension after January. Now, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, um, because everything that they need to get done, they can just adjust a timeline for. So it wouldn't be the worst thing, but it's also not ideal because they have these expansion drafts coming up, and the fact that no team can really make a move in terms of free agency until they know what the CBA is going to say about roster size, about salary caps, so on and so forth. And that's where things get interesting for the Dallas Wings because they have so many free agents, and because of the fact that they were planning on using free agency in order to fill the rest of the roster. So let me see if that's something that was mentioned in this article or if it was another one. I think it was this one. So Maya Taylor for DallasNews.com kind of talked about how um, the extension would affect the Dallas Wings. So she says Dallas which secured the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft at last week's lottery, would work inside a condensed timeline when it comes to building a new roster through free agency and other offseason transactions, should there be an extension for CBA negotiations. So the Wings have a strong young core, but some players may enter the expansion draft. So basically, with the expansion draft, uh, teams can protect a certain number of players. And so, like in 2024, it was 6 players that they could protect as long as they had the rights to their contracts. But because the CBA is not done, they don't even know how many players they can protect. So they don't know how many players they can protect. And then they've got players who are free agents who might get picked up in the expansion draft. They've got players who could just walk, expansion draft or not. So they're basically in a holding pattern. So, in terms of finding the right people, in terms of building team chemistry, and this doesn't just affect the Wings, but like I cover the Wings. But yeah, the Wings are basically kind of stuck until they figure out this whole CBA situation. So, no news on what's being brought to the table in terms of the negotiation, but for the Dallas Wings and every other team that is in this situation, everybody's in a holding pattern and really can't make a move in terms of preparing for next season until this gets figured out. So, for everyone involved, the sooner the better. Um, and so, yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of news. The Mavs are still losing. There's nothing to report on there. But I probably will start paying closer attention to the Mavs once the Cowboy season ends. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much that, guys. I think one more thing, I just want to connect some dots real quick because I posted a short video. It wasn't in any particular episode, but I posted a short video about, I think I was asking a random question about sports fans and whether or not being a sports fan invites more unity or more chaos. And this was inspired by a Trevor Noah video I saw where he was talking about football, soccer, his version of football, and how just people being fans of certain teams really brings them together, and there's this great unity and there's this camaraderie, and it's a beautiful thing to witness between people. And so I kind of talked about the fact that, in my opinion, it seems like while being a fan of a certain team can bring people together, what's more emphasized is just how much opposing fan bases are at each other's throats for no reason. Um, I've had Eagles fans come at me sideways, even when I'm not even talking that bad about the team. I'll just put Eagles in the title, and I'm talking about the Cowboys and what they did against the Eagles, not necessarily about the Eagles. And you just have people in the comments or in the chat just like losing their minds for no reason. So I was just kind of like asking for other people's experience, right? Apparently there were some people who didn't really get where I was coming from in terms of that conversation and my experience, and also the fact that it ties back to a previous episode where I talked about just tribalism in sports. And if y'all were, I think some of y'all were there, I think JV was there, but there was an episode where I literally brought up scientific studies and I talked about how um, the same parts of your brain that are activated when people exhibit like racism or bias, those same parts of your brain are activated whenever you experience tribalism in sports, right? Um, so I might talk more about those topics just so that whenever I do bring them up in a random short video, it's not like people are blindsided and they're like, huh, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm getting weird questions and weird comments um, because people don't have like a point of reference. So Clement says, actually, they beat the Nuggets tonight in Denver. Awesome. Go Mavs. I wasn't watching. I'm sorry. I need to do better. Um, I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's only one of me. So, but thanks for the update. I appreciate that. So maybe I should start paying more attention to them sooner. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It is tough having a full-time job and trying to cover multiple professional teams. So I appreciate y'all for always bringing up-to-date information to the chat. Um, but yeah, as the NFL season winds down, I typically do start looking at the NBA more anyway. JV said the one you is phenomenal. Thank you, JV. I appreciate it. I've been needing those words of encouragement sometimes because some days I'm just like, ugh, how am I gonna do this? But yeah, as the season winds down, I'll start talking about other topics a little bit more, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I just don't want people to be blindsided when I start talking about other stuff like like soccer, like tennis, and they're just like, huh, where's this coming from? Or not having a point of reference for what I'm saying. So if y'all notice me talking about that more, and it'll probably be more in my short videos than it is in my episodes. So for those of y'all who watch all the content, thank you. I appreciate you. But if you don't, definitely follow me on TikTok so you don't miss anything. Um, but yeah, that's about it. So don't forget to check out Hard Knocks tomorrow night. It'll be fun. And I will see you guys for another watch along on Thursday. But I'm gonna get out of here before my throat completely abandons me, because I can already feel it. It's like, bitch, we're done. We're done. We don't want to do no more. Um, so that being said, thanks everybody in the chat for participating. I hope y'all have a good night. This has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm your host, Jazz Monet, and I'm out.
You only think of us as a bitches when you intimidated. Put it that way. I think
people
that's
look at a woman and she's an
so
aggressive
sad.
woman who's out to get what she wants to get. You know what I'm saying? Ambitious, and they want to say, you know, when a male is assertive, that's what he wants. He's looked at as a strong male, but yet when I get it, you know, I'm a bitch.
Exactly.
And if that's what I gotta be, exactly, to get what I want and to make it somewhere, then I'll just be that.